We will start with Ms. Butler.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Marquita Butler, and I do appreciate all you coming out to hear what we have to say as prospective council members. I grew up in Brooklyn Center. I attended Earl Brown when it was on the other side of the street, and Brooklyn Center High School. And while at Brooklyn Center, I was extremely active in athletics and student government. I served on the school board for 4 years as a student representative. I also was part of the 2-time state champion 4x1, and we still hold the record, so if you're ever in the field, check it out. I went on to go to Augsburg College, where I obtained a BA in Communication Studies, and then I went to Loyola University of Chicago and obtained a master's in Cultural and Educational Policy Studies. I currently work at the Harvest Network of Schools as the Volunteer and Community Partnerships Manager, and have a real passion for kids, education, and our youth. I am a wife of 8 years, and we have a 5-year-old son, and we have lived abroad. We have lived in other states, and we chose, when we wanted to purchase our home, to come back to Brooklyn Center. I love Brooklyn Center. There's so many things about it that I loved growing up that I wanted to give to my son, and the reason why I decided to run for city council is I've seen a change in Brooklyn Center. I hear a lot of negativity when it comes to people talking about Brooklyn Center, and I don't like it. It burns my heart because, like I said, I'm a true Brooklyn Center person, and I know we have a lot of great things to offer. So as part of the city council, I'd like to change that perception and change that image of Brooklyn Center, so that everyone knows all the great things about us. And I also want to increase the community engagement. We are a very diverse community, and I think it's important that we everyone is heard, and all the opportunities are spread out throughout the city. And lastly, I also like to be a part of developing the economic development of Brooklyn Center. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dewberry.
Good evening. Hola. Habarigani. Jambo. Yang Shang. Did I miss anybody? I'm new. Yesterday was my 3rd year here in Brooklyn Center. The team that I put together to support this, well, actually, they put the team together to support me. I'd like to say that what brings me to participate in this process. For 30 years, I've worked in politics in the background, and so this is my first time stepping out. I'm nervous, considering I lecture all the time and public speaking. I'm still nervous, so bear with me. I am a single father of 2 incredible sons that I adopted from Hennepin County, associate professor, licensed social worker, and community activist. I'd like to say what brings me here and to run has to do with the 21st century. This city is not in the 21st century. The ordinance, policies, and such. And so I would like to be a part of bringing it into the 21st century. Thank you.
Mr. Gray.
Good evening, everyone. Can I get you all to raise your hands? Okay, that's just my way to make sure that you're all listening. My name is Philip Gray. I am a 30-year resident of Brooklyn Center. I actually originally came from St. Louis, Missouri. I've lived in Brooklyn Center for 30 years and been a homeowner in Brooklyn Center for 30 years. I've been active in the community. I'm a school administrator. I actually hold a Master's of Business Administration in Marketing and Strategy, and I also have 3 other degrees in communications, business, and criminal justice. I'm a longtime community advocate. When I was about 15, people started telling me that I could work with kids. So ever since then, in my community, I started working with young people, helping them to develop and become positive and productive citizens. As a school administrator here in Blaine, I actually work with students that are considered at-risk students, or actually students that are what most would call throwaway students. I'm a little bit nervous as well, so you have to bear with me also. I do a lot of talking in front of kids, but when you put me in front of a group of adults, I sometimes get a little bit nervous. But as I said, I work with students, and with my students, I try to develop them and help them guide and be productive students and productive citizens in this country. One of the reasons that I actually, the biggest reason that I actually decided to run for city council here in Brooklyn Center was because I've seen Brooklyn Center go through a lot of different changes, many of them good changes. For many of you that don't know, Brooklyn Center now is the first city in the state of Minnesota that actually has a larger minority population than the other population, I would say. And with that, I guess I have to stop.
No, but that was very teacherly. I was very proud of you. Okay. Mr. Koenig.
Good evening. My name is Alexander Koenig, and of course, I'd also like to extend a thank you to you folks for coming out this evening in the hot weather, and then certainly to the folks who organized this, as this speaks directly to the core of what I believe in, what I'm about, and how I see a community as need be, and how I hope I will be able to assist it, and that being community participation. Communities such as ours that are actually large and are groundbreaking in terms of much what Mr. Gray just said, as one of the few majority-minority communities, often does not get the participation required or needed by its citizenry to make the effect or have a loud and strong and consistent voice in the actual decision-making process and the power process that is needed. So a big thank you to the folks who continually do these, because sometimes the attention that we don't get in the smaller communities, in the peoples of both color communities and cultures. And that, again, speaks much to the core of what I am about and what I intend on doing the best I can to further it as a leader, a champion, a voice, and a participant in the city council, and as advocacy for all folks and all businesses to enhance the overall livability, the enjoyment, and the economic viability of Brooklyn Center. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Rossiter.
I wasn't nervous until I picked up this red mic that dropped earlier. Good evening, fine residents of Brooklyn Center, and thank you so much for attending or for viewing this evening's forum. I'm Matt Rossiter, and I was born on the North Shore of Lake Superior. I'm a consultant for Wells Fargo Home Mortgage and have a degree in finance from the University of Wisconsin-Superior. My significantly better half, Laura, sitting in the back, and I have called Brooklyn Center our home for almost 7 years. 7 years ago, when Laura and I began our house hunt, I was unsure of what cities we should be focusing on, but our search was open to all. As many of you are aware, those who grew up in other areas in the metro have some unfair preconceived notions of this wonderful and inclusive community. Admittedly, Laura, who grew up in Northeast Minneapolis, will tell you it wasn't an easy task to get her to look anywhere but Northeast Minneapolis. But I persisted, and we discovered the great value that could be found here in Brooklyn Center. Ladies and gentlemen, this was the one and only time with Laura I was right. We're so thankful to live in this great community with you as our neighbors. Our city motto is a great place to start, a great place to stay. And as an affordable and diverse first-rank suburb, it is vital we continue to attract great citizens and have leaders who make wise decisions in how we invest, develop, and protect our city. In March, I spent a day at the Capitol and had the opportunity to visit with Chris Eaton, our state senator, and Deb Hillstrom, our state rep. And politics aside, I came away from these meetings looking for a way to get involved in our community. My values align with many others I've spoken to in our community, and it would be a great honor to serve on our city council. Thank you.
Thank you. We're now moving into our 1-minute questions from the audience. Take a deep breath, let it out, smile. Everyone's here is friendly. Our first question reader will be Edmund, and our first responder, are you reversing order? They'll let me know. Nick will be our first question reader, and I'll let you know in advance our first responder will be Mr. Rossiter.
With all the issues that our community have been faced with, especially lately, what do you bring to this office that will help bridge the gap to bring our diverse community together?
Thank you. That's a great question. I've thought a lot, like I think many of us have in recent years, certainly, about diversity and what that means. To me, the most important thing that we can all do as citizens and as humans is to recognize that we're all humans and citizens and treat each other with fairness and with equality. To me, what that has meant growing up in a small northern city with admittedly not a whole lot of diversity is that I've never treated anybody any differently than I would expect to be treated by them, and I think it starts with the community, I think it starts with the citizens, and it starts with involvement. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Butler.
Thank you for that question. I appreciate it because we are in a situation now where people are pretty upset, and I think the biggest thing is having open dialogue. Everyone's coming from different point of view, so I think it's this for the city to provide a community space to have open dialogue to see what are the concerns of all the residents of Brooklyn Center and how we can address those concerns. I think getting involved with the youth, like I said, I'm very passionate about youth, and they are our future. And so I think having groups of youth that take leadership in some of these issues and are able to address the way they feel about what's going on and how we can address them and prevent them from happening in our city of Brooklyn Center.
Thank you. Mr. Koenig.
The question, what do I bring? Sincerity, integrity, consistency, and perseverance. Those are the traits of which will assist and embolden me to follow up and follow through with indeed what is, for lack of better words, the calamity of the entire nation currently, in as much as the racial disparities and how we are addressing them or not addressing them. There is great difficulty in finding a middle ground between now community culture, or what is often, I think, mistakenly labeled under the umbrella of just strictly race, as if everything literally is black and white. Within race, there is far more than black or white. It is community and culture. Integrity, sincerity, consistency, and perseverance is what I bring, and a lot of experience walking the streets with the folks whom consistently champion the causes.
Thank you. Mr. Dewberry?
What I bring also is my integrity. What I also bring is my spiritual foundation and a team that works with me that consists of nothing but researchers. So they will be a little closer. Got it. And I look forward to finding out about what makes this city tick. working with the folks in the community, listening to the folks in the community, and I also bring my human beingness to the process of working with the city. Thanks.
And Mr. Gray.
Well, first of all, I'm in the middle, and I seem to be the microphone passer, so I'm looking for a little bit extra at the end of the night. But to answer your question, as a mediator, I currently work with Department of Education, and I work with several conflict resolution organizations dealing with issues that people have in their community. So when the question was answered, the first thing that I thought of was community. And with me, community is an action word. As a mediator, I believe in dialogue. And dialogue means belly to belly, knee to knee, having conversations with people to understand where they're coming from so that we can address all the issues and concerns that individuals have in their community.
Sina is coming up next, and our first responder will be Mr. Gray again. Thank you.
Do you support Black Lives Matter, and why?
What I support with Black Lives Matter is their ability to associate themselves with causes of dignity and respect for all people. As a movement that is based on various incidents that have happened throughout this country, some of the issues that we see that make people shy away from Black Lives Matter have to do with violence and those things that have happened outside of those individuals that are involved with Black Lives Matters. Black Lives Matters is basically an organization interested in respecting and advocating for the respect and dignity of all people. And I don't think anyone in this room can say that they don't support that.
Mr. Koenig?
I do support Black Lives Matter, and I support them in the aspect of that it is the absolute, if not the most important, and that's the freedom of expression of the Constitution to voice your concerns to your government and to your peoples in what you believe and what you believe needs to be made better. There are actions with Black Lives Matter, if we can call them an organization, of which I have participated with often, both in marching and just in show of support as a body standing there with them. There are some actions that I have not supported, and that is also okay. Oftentimes, currently in the media and in just media general, it is portrayed, as was once said by a president I was not all that fond of, which is incorrect. Everything is not you're either with us or against us. That is inaccurate, and that is exactly what causes the divisivenesses that we have. You take the best of what is there and work with that. I do support Black Lives Matter.
Mr. Dewberry?
I do. I support Black Lives Matter, but I do it from a distance. My work is more towards organizations, groups, and individuals in making changes and producing positive outcomes. So I do support, but my energy and my mindset is set on the community.
Mr. Rossiter?
So I support the right to protest in a safe and a respectful manner. And I can't say that I know enough about the organization Black Lives Matter to answer that question 100%. I encourage open dialogue. My father years ago was in Washington, D.C. for a very important protest. And so I was raised in a manner that all race is a human. And so to that regard, I don't necessarily understand, and I'll be open and honest about that. But I encourage people to respectfully and safely protest. That's one of the great rights of being an American citizen. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ms. Butler.
I absolutely do support Black Lives Matter. It's an organization that has been brought to the forefront to raise the issues that are a real problem. And I do agree with what the problems are. They are real and they need to be addressed. Like some of the other candidates have expressed some of the ways in which they do voice their concerns, I don't always agree with. I don't always participate, but I do stand with them and I do support this organization, and I do hope that through them forming that we can have these conversations and find some type of resolution.
Thank you. The first responder to Tiaran's question will be Mr. Koenig. Tiaran?
How do you plan to ensure full integration and equity of immigrant populations in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center?
By attempting to encourage participation. Participation is the key in any and all endeavors. Participation, and how we get the participation is in the various means, such as this, participation in your city council selections, your voter registration drives, your city council meetings when there are housing issues that you need to attend to voice your concern. How will I get them? By reaching out to them in all of the standard ways, via telephone, via email, via knocking on door, and most important, by letting each and every constituent know that I am and will always be available and easily accessible, because I make decisions most preferably by consensus. And then after consensus, if the decision is mine to make, I have no problem making that decision. So participation is how.
Mr. Rossiter?
Could you repeat the question?
How do you plan to ensure full integration and equity of immigrant populations in Brooklyn Park and Brooklyn Center?
Thank you. I don't have the answer, to be perfectly honest there. There's a certain point where you just have to admit that you don't have the answer to every question, and this one I don't have the answer to. I think it's very important that we educate. I think it's very important that we include, that we invite our immigrant population to participate in forums such as this. I don't have a great answer to that question, and I'm okay with that. Hopefully some of you are okay with that honesty too, but be involved. Stuff like this, that's the best way to be in, be a part of the community and to be inclusive, and that's what I encourage all of you to do, is continue to attend and participate. So thank you.
Ms. Butler?
I know a mentor once shared with me the difference between equality and equity is providing shoes versus shoes that fit. And I think with the immigrant population, there are certain needs that they have coming from the countries in which they have, I know we have a huge Hmong population, we have a huge Liberian population that are in Brooklyn Center and Brooklyn Park. And they all come from different backgrounds and have different things, issues that they need raised as now community members. And so I think it's having that open dialogue and finding out what are their needs. How do we have get them involved? So we heard in the last forum that some have to work 1.5 to 2 jobs to maintain their household. So how can we expect for them to get involved when they're working all the time or taking care of their children? So again, having those discussions, finding out what are some of the good times that we can include them in what's going on and give them a voice in our community.
Mr. Gray?
Well, I think first of all, you let individuals from different communities know of the opportunities that are available. In one of my positions at Hennepin County, I was a cultural liaison. And one of the things that I did was I developed cultural navigators that would go into the Somali community with me, and I would go to the Somali restaurant and eat at the Somali restaurant, go to the mosque. I did the same thing in the Hmong community and also in the Liberian community in Minneapolis, and went to different areas to not only let individuals know of the opportunities available, but also to make a presence for myself to get to know more about the individuals that I was working with. And again, having listening sessions and opportunities for individuals to come in and talk with you, setting programs at different times. Ms. Butler just stated about doing different times, but we had a committee that met in the morning, which was supposed to be a community committee, and most people knew that the community didn't get to the meeting in the morning. So we restructured the meetings to fit the times of the community.
Thank you. And Mr. Dewberry.
Well, one of my vows I took was about equanimity, and I operate and focus on that. My relationships with the people of color is amazing, and the experience I have with those communities, my community, is an outstanding resource, an experience for me. As for having and giving you points on what I would do, I don't have that answer. I have what I believe is one of my top skills, and that skill is being able to formulate and ask the most and the best questions. And so I will bring those questions to those communities, and I would bring those questions to those who are in power in the city and formulate from there.
Thank you. The first responder to Edmund's question will be Mr. Dewberry.
So, if elected, what can you do for our homeless veterans?
Oh my, that's a great question, because I work with homeless veterans right now. Actually, as a veteran, I've been working with veterans for the last 25 years at the VA, in the community, and currently running a group for veterans. I had just left the position with Affirmation House, and we had just opened up a home specifically for homeless veterans in Crystal. So my passion, my focus, and my skills and my understanding comes to play, and I have solutions.
Mr. Gray.
Well, I think that, again, my ability to dialogue and find information, to find if that is an issue in Brooklyn Center, and then once I've determined or through a group determined that it is an issue, try to gather as many individuals in that community to look, listen, and learn what it is we can do for them. I believe that most of the solutions that we have are in the people that are having the issues and concerns. And so that's what I would actually do, is try to locate individuals in that community. And Mr. Dewberry sounds like he would possibly be one of those individuals to sit on a panel or in a group to come up with solutions on how we could best serve those individuals who serve this country and who should be treated with dignity and respect.
Thank you. Mr. Rossiter.
Like Mr. Gray said, I would probably introduce them to yourself there, Mr. Dewberry. I think probably one of the more interesting ways we could look at this problem is Brooklyn Center. I'm a member of the SAL at the American Legion here in town, is encourage veterans to help veterans in the community. It all kind of, to me, comes back to a community is strength, is its citizens, and how we help those in need. And so that would be a good start. And then educating our homeless veterans on programs that are available. That's education in what can be done is a key when it comes to really any of the issues that we're talking about tonight. So thank you.
Ms. Butler?
What I could do as a city council member to help homeless veterans, I would use, so in my job, I work with marginalized communities, and like I said, I'm a partnership management manager, and so a lot of my job is finding resources for those marginalized communities and bringing them and integrating them into our schools to help our students. So with this situation, I would do the same thing. I would go and research what organizations are already doing that we could help our citizens get access to. So giving them resources and a way to get to those resources. And then also just having again, dialogue is huge. Just having that dialogue with the veterans about what their needs are. Thank you.
And Mr. Koenig?
I believe that the principal problem with the veterans and the situations that they run into occurs almost instantaneously after they arrive from wherever it is that they were serving. And once the pomp and circumstance parades and the little bit of glory that they might receive quickly ends, and they are melted into society, of which now differs greatly from where they came. And then, in turn, they have great difficulty in acknowledging any of the fears they might have, or of the post-traumatic stress syndromes, and etc. What needs to happen is that after the celebrations of the honor of serving for this country, that they need to be made aware and known to their very core that indeed perhaps they have re-entered a world of which will be very strange to them, and that it is okay to reach out and seek help and assistance. And how I would do so is by reaching out to whatever government entity has available resources to us.
Thank you. The first responder to Nick's question will be Mr. Rossiter. Nick?
How will you promote community participation to help schools close the achievement gaps in early childhood through high school education?
Could you read that a second time, please?
How will you promote community participation to help schools close the achievement gaps in early childhood through high school education?
Well, I come from a household of two retired educators, and so education is something that I hold very near and dear to my heart. There's a couple different things that come to mind when I think about this. One is encouraging a household that believes in pushing education on their kids, and the only way to improve your situation in life is, you've probably figured out at this point, is education. That's the key. And so educating our citizens on ways to get your kids involved in community events and activities and things that'll really excite the children about the power of learning and knowledge is probably the way that I would start with that. Thank you.
Mr. Koenig?
First and foremost, I would look for any way as a city council person that I can affect in getting Governor Mark Dayton's proposal through the legislature, which would allow free or unencumbered education to the pre-K and the Head Start type programs, of which is where it all begins. The foundation of our education and of ourselves, our personalities, and who we are, as I think the age might differ, but somewhere between 2 and 4. 2 and 5 is where the substantial amount of who and what we are and what we will see in life is where it begins. From there, we need to refocus monies that come into communities, federal dollars such as Brooklyn Center, and not so much on not necessarily wasteful programs, but when levies and such are put forth, that they indeed go directly to the schools and to the education of them, not necessarily capital improvements and such.
Thank you. Mr. Gray?
Well, as an educator and administrator, I again believe in partnership. So I look at educators, having listening sessions with educators to determine curriculum and how we can best serve the parents and students that we're working with. Parents having an open educational system that addresses their needs. Students that also have the ability to, again, have an open and structured curriculum that's beneficial to everyone. As a person that's put 4 children through school here in this area, again, I've had an opportunity to be involved with the educational system. I've had an opportunity to sit through meetings, be on PTAs, and all of those things. And again, that experience will be brought to the table as I move into a position with the City Council.
Mr. Dewberry.
I think, and I do believe that the community needs to be educated so they may come into the school and educate the students. They say it takes a village to raise a child. Now, if the village isn't educated, then the child becomes more of a challenge. The village becomes more of a challenge. So I think going into providing and addressing that issue is to ask the kids. The question I asked a group of kids about what we could do as educators, and they simply said, "Why don't you ask us what we want, what we need?" Just blew me away. Thank you.
Ms. Butler.
Also, as an educator, I've worked in Brooklyn Center High School. I've also, like I said, now work in North Minneapolis, and so I see the challenges. Some of the bigger issues are the external factors, housing, affordability with jobs. Like I said, if there's parents working 2 or 3 jobs, they're not present. They're not there to help with homework. They're not there to go to soccer games, and so providing livable wages, jobs with livable wages in the communities, providing affordable housing that will help address some of these issues. Also, a big issue is the summer slide. A lot of children of color in the summertime don't have access to educational enrichment programs, and so they tend to lose some of the knowledge that they gained in the previous year. So partnering with some of the school districts, or our school districts, to provide some academic enriching programs, I think would make a huge difference.
Thank you. The first responder to Sina's question will be Ms. Butler. Go ahead, Sina.
How can Brooklyn Center diversify the staff in city jobs, including the police and fire departments, to reflect the diversity of the community?
I definitely think it is important for our the jobs that are in the city to reflect our diverse population, and I think that ways to do that would be to hold, when there's openings, the opportunities, hold those job fairs or postings, put them in a central location where a lot of our community members attend, and just getting the word out and seeking the qualified, diverse candidates that we do have in our community.
Mr. Rossiter.
Well, I would start by directing people to the Brooklyn Center website. There's 5 jobs available in the part-time category on there right now. So, the first would be to encourage people to apply. I agree with what was just said. Those that work in the city should reflect the population, and so it is something that needs to be taken into account when interviewing potential job candidates. You want to hire the best and make sure that you're giving weight to who the community is. So, thank you.
Mr. Koenig.
I believe a problem with individuals is that they don't believe that they qualify or have the prior experiences to apply. It's very daunting, actually, for minority communities, cultures, particularly when you are newly arrived. I would consider newly arrived a year or two into your stay in the United States. You approach these huge entities as a county, a city government, and you just feel that you don't belong, that you don't have the qualifications, that you are challenged by your language skills, and that in total, oftentimes you are told, or it seems in society, that you don't qualify and you won't get the job. What needs to happen is the peoples need to believe that you do qualify, that you can apply, and you put your application in, and then the powers that be, meaning human resources, not to say it in a negative sense, after they see so many applicants apply, then perhaps the qualifications turn more towards life experiences and the values that those have as opposed to strictly academic.
Thank you. Mr. Gray.
Thank you. Well, if you remember back in 1945, when the United States basically wanted to rebuild Europe, they created a Marshall Plan where different countries got together, put together funds, and helped to basically rebuild Europe. In a loosely fit present-day Marshall Plan, Brooklyn Center could actually, when there's a job opening, place advertisements in different newspapers. For instance, the Minneapolis Spokesman Recorder, which is an African-American newspaper, the Hmong Times, the Native American Press, La Prensa. That would actually not only show that you're interested in attracting other people to come into Brooklyn Center to work, but it would actually be a bona fide way to do so. And that would be, again, one of the ways that I would look to again, diversify the staff by making sure that those individuals in the different communities had access to the job applications as well as the job announcements.
Thank you. And Mr. Dewberry.
Well, I know of a multitude of folks who are qualified and who have applied. I think the reality and the truth about it is that the families and friends and the good old boy groups have been a negative in that taking place. So to dismantle that, I believe, would open up a lot more faces of people of color when it comes to the city.
The first responder to Tieran's question will be Mr. Dewberry. Tieran?
What do you think of a downtown area in Brooklyn Park? Where would you suggest this downtown be?
Brooklyn Center.
Oh, sorry. The question said Brooklyn Park, read wrong. So what do you think of a downtown area in Brooklyn Center? Where would you suggest this downtown be?
I would know where to put it. And I don't think, as my experience here, that would be a good fit. I think there is a lot of different other avenues to bring commerce, bring the communities and the citizens of Brooklyn Center together. So I wouldn't invest my time and energy in researching if that would work or not.
Ms. Butler?
So I think what they're doing over currently with the development where Brookdale used to be, there's a lot of shops beginning to open there, and it just seems like a natural gravitation spot for people because of the different retail opportunities and restaurants. So if we were to have a downtown area, I think the best area would be there because the access to 100 we would get the 100 traffic. 694 is not too far, as well as 94. So access in Brooklyn to Brooklyn Center, I believe that is the best area. And I think that we can continue to develop that area more and offer maybe mixed housing and different type of retail shops.
Mr. Rossiter?
Downtown area in Brooklyn Center would be, in the traditional sense, would be difficult to do given we don't have a main street, right? We're a very wide and spread out city. But to reiterate what was just said, the Brookdale Mall redevelopment area, I mean, I think about that when we first moved here was an eyesore. It was a trouble area. And the job that has been done to bring in the developer and to encourage business and commerce in that area has been outstanding. So continuing in the efforts to bring restaurants, good hangout restaurants would be great. I'd like to focus on that. That would be the area I would continue to work on, as well as taking a look at developing the other vacant lands that are seemingly accessible in those areas right now as well.
Mr. Koenig?
I currently have the good fortune as serving as the vice chair of the Brooklyn Center Planning Commission, and with that I've had the opportunity to see several proposals and such regarding development. A downtown corridor, so to speak, would certainly be located in all of the empty lands that begin there on the corner of Shingle Creek and Bass Lake Road. The near proximity certainly to the highways is the biggest plus, but there already is a beautiful progression of building happening there with so much as the library, the courthouse, our beautiful, beautiful park there, the community center, that is already established there. The trails and bikeways that are already there, it has already laid the foundation. There is a substantial amount of land both there and what is left on the Brookdale site and the Coles site to make this an opportunity for when folks go cruising on down 694, 100, etc., to stop in downtown Brooklyn Center.
Mr. Gray?
Well, I would say, first of all, I definitely would support a center or a middle of the city. Having recently just traveled to quite a few cities, even in the smaller towns, they have basically a middle of the city where you go through where there's shopping and foot traffic, and it helps to build their community. As far as where I would like for it to be, I always say Brooklyn Boulevard, but it's so crazy out there some days that it may not be the safest place to put a town center. Bass Lake Road, plenty of room, plenty of space. Again, that's kind of been said. But also Shingle Creek. Shingle Creek has the library. It actually has the city hall, the fire department, the police department. So that might be where it would make the most sense. As far as the development, that would be another story, but I think those would be three options for us to have a city center.
Before we go to our last question, I decided privilege of the moderator. Lightning round question. Favorite thing to do or place to eat in Brooklyn Center? Go. 50s Grill. Okay, go. You have the last question. This is the lightning round. Go.
I would have to say
Applebee's. He says Applebee's. Mr. Gray.
Big guy. Great Indias, Slims, or
Write them down and hand it to me later. Okay. Mr. Koenig.
Currently, it's
Cuvette. I just saw that. Ooh. Okay, Mr. Rossiter.
You got mine. Lunch with Laura at the American Legion has a great lunch, and that is our guilty.
Caveat. Okay, I'm totally going to stop there. Got that? Okay. All right, our last question by Edmund, our first responder, will be Mr. Gray. Go ahead, Edmund.
Thank you for your time tonight. Candidates, could you please tell us your position on ranked choice voting? Your position on ranked choice voting.
Rank choice voting.
You know what is that?
They had it in the city of Minneapolis last year when they had.
When they vote, they
Yep.
rank by choice the first, second. No, it's called a rank choice.
Right.
vote.
Well, I'm not real familiar with the concept. I actually, during the caucus, we did some of those ranked choice voting. There were those that were for it, and I was so new in the process that I really didn't understand it. So it's one of those things that I would have to take a greater look at and get more information on it. But again, what I favor is anything that benefits residents, citizens, and the people.
Mr. Dewberry?
I also am not familiar with that process, and so I would also have to do my research on that. But like I say, if it serves in a way that it brings everybody to the table and it empowers those who are running and the communities, I'm all for it.
Ms. Butler?
I will echo what has been said. I'm not very familiar with it either, and I'm not afraid to admit that. And I, again, would have to do my research before I can't say where I stand on something before I know enough about it to be informed. So at this time, I apologize whoever answered that question, but it's definitely something that I'm going to be researching right away so I can be informed of that. And I welcome whoever asked the question to talk more about it after the forum.
Mr. Rossiter?
I know a little bit about the ranked choice that's seeming to gain a little bit of popularity, and I think that in cases like this, where at least one of the people on this panel today is going to be one of your new city council members, I think it can be very effective in that case where you don't maybe have the opportunity to learn as much in a little bit more of a lower key type election, which this is. So it gives a little bit more weight to people to say, first choice, second choice, third choice, and kind of get the real consensus when you have multiple candidates. So further than that, I don't know more, but I think that it could have a benefit, and I think that's a great question.
Mr. Koenig?
I attended the rally where Bernie Sanders came to town in North Minneapolis, and it was there actually that the gentleman who was spearheading the campaign for ranked choice voting spoke to me, and we had a long conversation, and I certainly was familiar with it prior, and I do fully support ranked choice voting, and in fact on 2 occasions I went out and sought signatures for the petition of it. It is good, and I will echo Mr. Rossiter that in elections such as this, where they are smaller and the information available for candidates sometimes is difficult to acquire, both because we either don't get it out there or there's just no coverage of it. It gives the constituency the opportunity to select in exactly as it says, ranking the candidates according to as to how they would potentially like to see, if not this candidate, then that candidate. And it's good. It's a very good democratic process. I do support ranked choice voting.
Thank you. We're going to move on to your 1-minute final statements, in which you get to say anything else that wasn't covered earlier. And we're going to go in the reverse order in which we started. So our first speaker will be Matthew Rossiter.
Thank you, and I want to commend everybody up here. This isn't easy to take the questions and to make the decision to do this. So congratulations to all 4 of you in your efforts to further your causes for our city. And thank you to the Northwest Coalition for hosting tonight's forum and allowing me the opportunity to introduce myself to Brooklyn Center community and neighbors who I have not yet met. To summarize my earlier comments, I look forward to working with you and the rest of City Council to continue to invest, develop, and protect our city. Over the coming months, I intend to reach out and meet more of you, and please feel free to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to listen to your concerns and your visions for the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Alexander Koenig.
I want to see a Brooklyn Center of which is revitalized and revived strongly, and then therefore continues very progressively into the future of home ownership and stability. The neighborhoods, as I've begun to walk around, we have some very beautiful neighborhoods, some very stable neighborhoods with age ranges of folks from your 80s, 90s to your millennials moving in. The economic structure of Brooklyn Center should be benefiting greatly from the redevelopment booms that are occurring principally in Minneapolis. The Super Bowl is coming here. The Final Four is coming here. The Ryder Cup is around the corner. Today was announced yesterday the X Games are coming. There are so many tourism activities and international conventions that visit Minneapolis. Brooklyn Center needs to stabilize itself economically and make itself a place where families come to live, grow, and stay, and people come to visit and spend money and make government better for all peoples.
Thank you. Mr. Philip Gray.
Well, again, first of all, I would like to say thank you to all of you for coming out tonight. It's hot. I know it's very, very warm, and it was tough to get out. And then actually, my power went out right before we came out of the house as well. Again, I actually didn't introduce myself fully. My wife is here. Michelle is, and we've actually again raised 4 children here in Brooklyn Center. I love Brooklyn Center. I am physically, emotionally, and spiritually attached to Brooklyn Center. I chose to live here. I chose to work here, to be a part of the community here, and that's actually what I would like to do and bring to the city council, making this a place where people will want to work here, live here, play here, stay here, own businesses here, come here to visit, shop here, and also to retire here and visit your grandkids here. Brooklyn Center is a great place. I love it, and thank you for your time.
Thank you. Mr. Rodney Dewberry.
I would like to also thank all that were involved in making this happen. It's an outstanding experience for me. I am invested here in this community and this city. I have experienced negative talk about Brooklyn Center, so I would like to see that change, and I would like to see opportunities, especially for the entrepreneurs. That is what stand out greatly for me since I've been here in the city, and the power and the opportunity that it can bring in funds, jobs, and a incubator would be a nice thing to involve here too. So thank you all.
Thank you. And our final speaker is Ms. Marquita Butler.
Again, thank you to all of you that came to hear us out this evening, and to everyone that was involved in the process in putting this together. I'm very passionate about Brooklyn Center. My parents, who are in the front row supporting me, decided to move us here decades ago, and my father is very actively involved, and I follow in his footsteps because he's shown that it's very important to be involved in the community that you choose to be in and make a lasting impact. And so following in his footsteps, that's why I'm here. I want my son to have the same quality of life that I had growing up in Brooklyn Center. And echoing a lot of the statements that have been said today, I'm growing tired of the negative perception that I hear from Brooklyn Center, and I really want to be on the forefront of showing all the great things about Brooklyn Center. I also want to eliminate the vacant lots that we have. The old Jerry Foods lot, I remember that being Jerry Foods growing up, and that's been empty for so long, and I really like to see us use that for some development and bring in more businesses. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you once again on behalf of the Northwest Suburbs Community and Labor Coalition. I would like to thank the candidates for agreeing to participate in this evening's forum and even playing along with my little lightning round question. I would like to thank the audience for coming and participating by submitting great questions, and I'd like to thank the viewing audience as well, and thank my wonderful question askers up here. Remember, if we couldn't get to your question tonight, or you have further questions or concerns for the candidates, we invite you to contact them directly with your thoughts, and they will love to sit down and have a coffee with you and talk about them. Remember to get out and vote on August 9th is for your primaries, and also that early absentee voting is available right now if you are going on vacation and want to get your vote in. So thank you for coming this evening, and get out and vote.